And here we are running another episode on the Oak and Rock Fatherhood channel. Anthony, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing great, Zach. How's it going, brother?
It's going, man. We've been knocking out the videos, having these great talks, great guests come on, and we've got another one here. And this all of these stem from discussions we've had or what men have brought to us. And so today we're talking about conditioning your kids to fail and how men are doing it intentionally, unintentionally. We'll find out. But a lot of men, they're setting their kids up to fail. And it's through their performance as well as the standards they're placing on these kids. So, Anthony, as we're running this, we're going through the Oak and Rock and basically the discussion on what it is to be a father. Have you found that when working with the men, after 1, 2, 3 weeks, they really start to get the importance of what it is to live intentionally as a dad, as opposed to going through the motions? Like, how long do you think it's taking? Because I've been trying to put my thumb on it. And I'm like, after maybe 2 weeks, 2 sessions with you on the Zooms and FOE, they seem to like, all right, I get it, guys. Like now I'm starting to really understand. So I'm trying to think of what the learning curve is here. How long does it take for a man to realize if you're not living intentionally, you don't even realize the impact you're having on your family?
Well, it definitely depends because some men are open to new ideas relatively easy, and others, and I would consider myself in the other category. I don't like anybody telling me what to do. Right, I push back against everything. So it's those men I can relate to as well. Right, it's great to see men within a week or two be like, "Hey, man, I've changed some things in my home, and I'm seeing great results." I love that. Right, that's awesome to see. But the challenge is the guys who are like myself, who I don't want anybody to tell me what to do. I know what I'm doing, and unfortunately, I had to go through some pain to get better myself. Right, I had to experience and understand what my weaknesses were, not to always think that I had the right ideas or even what I was learning and applying it. Just thinking that I'm automatically doing it right. So with most men, especially the men who are coming to me, they're good men, they're family men. So when you offer a solution, something as simple as, listen, you have to do a little more work, and you'll get results. They do catch on pretty quick, within weeks, I would say.
Now, why do you think you were so resistant, though? Like, why do you have that streak in you of, well, don't tell me what to do. I'm going to keep doing it my way? Because I don't think I have that. I don't like being told what to do. Like, very obviously, I'm much more revolutionary minded if you were to put me in a category. But if you were to come to me and say, hey, man, you should try this, not that, there's zero question because you're living the thing or you've achieved the thing that I'm like, I want that. And you're like, hey, here's how I got this. So I just do it. How come you push back, though? Like, why do you have that issue with being told what to do?
Um, I would say a lot of it is an example from my father. He was pretty much a rebel, right? He didn't let anybody tell him what to do. So some of that was passed down to me. But I would also, I don't see it as always a good thing, right? There's different sides to this. So some of it could be from fear, right? Me not wanting to put myself out there and expand and grow because I could be judged, or I could find out that I'm really not as good as I should be or I want to be. The other side of that is, um, I have this mentality that I don't want anybody to stop me. Right? I've been in I've been in the trenches. I've been in, I was raised in New York and grew up in an auto body shop, so I've seen some shit. And I don't want anybody to stop me or try to stop me where I'm going. So a lot of times it's one in one ear and out the other, and not because I'm afraid, but because I don't want to be distracted. So there's definitely different elements to that, and I think ultimately, the topic is failure, right? Setting our kids up to fail. Um, I don't, ultimately, I don't want to fail, and it took me a long time to realize that by not being more open, I was actually pushing myself down, right? Not being more aware of what was going on, and that was reflected in my parenting, right? Being stuck in set ways and not wanting to grow, and it took a long time to move past that, to really take a look at myself and say, hey, man, there are things that I need to improve, and I need to stop pretending that I don't need help or that nobody can help me. So I think once I turned that corner, that's when life opened up. That's when I was able to give more because I was able to receive more.
It's interesting. I think I was having an issue understanding it until you said, there are sides to this. And I think that's what is clicking with me now. Like that, I get it now. There are different sides to this. There are different like elements to this discussion. And I think in most areas, you're like, Zac, you can't do this. No, and I have to do it. Zac, don't do this. Don't tell me what to do. But in certain areas, let's say fitness, uh, finances, parenting, in areas where I'm like, no, I want to go much further. I don't have that response. I'm like, in those specific areas, I'm very like hands off. I'm like, all right, yeah, like, no, you tell me what I need to do. I'm going to go do that thing without hesitation. And we were speaking about another discussion we had, and I was saying that when I'm out with my kids, like if we go to any event, like we go play golf, we go play a sport, we do mini golf, whatever, like I'm just having fun with the kids. In those moments, there's no competitive like bone in me. Maybe mini golf, I'm going to crush them. But in every other element, you put me with a bunch of men by myself, you put me in any environment like that, or even online, I am extremely competitive. So it's like a switch that's off and on. And I think, there's something to the environment you're brought up in, into what areas you turn that off or you turn that on. And if you're growing up, let's say the auto body shop and in New York, where there's a lot of things happening, there's a lot of people, there's just a lot. Somebody that's from there, and maybe somebody from the South, where there's a lot of emphasis on certain traditions, on certain values. And then you go to California, if you pull 3 dads from those 3 different regions, it's going to be 3 different areas where they struggle to be able to accept input. There's a lot of pride in New York. And there's a lot from what I'm not from there. So I'm just going off what I've seen. Like there's like New York, like if you're from New York, there's just something about saying that. I'm from New York. You're like, oh, well, you're something. Like, you're going to come up with something.
I try not to say it anymore.
Good.
As much as I can.
You got to integrate. But that's the thing. So now you're in the South. I think a man from the South, he would have a harder time with certain aspects of this is the way what right looks like, and this is what wrong looks like. And that would be different from New York. And then you take the dude from Cali, again, it's going to be much easier for him to maybe adopt to a certain mindset using tech with the bringing of kids, as opposed to you've got to be able to express your feelings properly and understand that there are systems that might not be popular that are out there that are more beneficial. And, you think about these hubs, well, they focus a lot on, well, what's popular? That's what I'm going to do. And I'm okay with that because all the other people are doing it. But they never sit and question the very difficult concepts. Like, hey, are you being your best? Is there a better way to raise your kids? Is there a better way to love yourself and raise yourself to being a better man? So when you said that, you really did hit a chord with me that as we go through this process and we're trying to help these men and they're watching this, well, I watched 1 video, 2 videos, 5 videos. My life isn't changing. You have to really let this go past that first wall of defense. You're resistant. Like some people are watching this and they're resistant to what we're saying. But with fatherhood, I think every father should be open. I think that is one area where the switch should be flipped and you should just be entertaining everything because there's so much happening that we should be learning and updating this system because parenting in 2021 is brand new to 1990. That's only 30 years. Only 30 years. And things have changed. Let's go to 2000, maybe even 2010. Yeah. Imagine 2021 and 2010. We're in a whole different world. So if you're not open to that, I think you're going to have a very hard time. And I think, as you said with the topic of today, you're going to set your kids up for failure because you're operating from an outdated system. And your kids are learning from that system. And you're not teaching them how to survive in 2021 and beyond. You're teaching them what you learned when it applied to the world you lived in, which is gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, think about what you see or what goes on in most families. You have fathers who are conditioning their kids to hold to their expectations. They're conditioning them to, be good at football because dad needs you to. Right? They're setting them up to not go after anything that the child would want, but they put these, preconceived standards on them, and they say, "Hey, you need to, in order for you to be successful or be good, you need to go and do this because dad wants you to." And I think that definitely stunts a child's growth, right? That when I don't care what age you are, if you're not going out and pursuing what you truly want, you're not going to excel or you're not going to succeed at the rate that you probably should. Right? There's going to be a motive behind it. It's always going to be doing it for somebody else. So, and I see this all the time, right? I really do. I see so many fathers, and even mothers. They're just as guilty. They try to control their kids. They try to make their kids do things so they could be happy, so the family unit could be happy. When going back to everything we talk about, it's always about the individual, right? A father's job is not to make his child satisfy his needs. It's to build that child up so they can learn how to satisfy their own needs, right? Without any external pressure from mom or dad. So, these are things we have to look at. Like you said, times are changing. If when you were a kid and your father pushed you to do things you didn't want to do, and you had trauma from it, you had resistance, there were things that messed you up because of those experiences, stop inflicting that or imposing that on your kids. We need to grow. We need to learn. And the only way we're going to really learn from those lessons are if we're strong enough to face them, right? If we're strong enough to say, hey, you know what? I really didn't like how I was treated as a kid. I didn't really like when my dad pushed me to do things I didn't want to do. And I do know that might get some backlash from that statement, right? There will be men or fathers who say, well, you got to push your kids. You got to push them to do hard things. Absolutely. But first, you need to find what they love to do, what they're passionate about. And then you need to embrace that. You need to accept that child for that passion. And then you encourage, right? Then you push them to go beyond limits and do your best. I think it's very counterproductive if you do it the other way, right? Because it's your needs, not theirs.
And that's the point, though. That's the whole point of the discussion. You're conditioning them to fail. You're putting them in a position where their whole foundation is built upon the expectation that they meet the need or the metric you've set. But have you ever wondered why you set that metric? As a father, have you ever stepped back and just asked, why do I even care about this? Why did I choose that? Why is it my expectation that they will be X, Y, Z? If you're just doing it just because, you're missing the entire point. The job that you have here is one you must live intentional. You can't put in autopilot. That's how I was raised. That's how I'll raise you. Think about what you're saying there. You were raised 30, let's say 30 years ago. You have a kid, you're 30 years old. Pick a middle age. 30 years old, you're raising a kid, and you're operating off of how you were raised in the 90s. Before like real cell phones, before the video games, before social media, before all the things that are literally like, these phones are with us all the time, and you were raised without them. How can you raise your kids in that world? You need to update yourself, your software, where you're working from, the firmware, whatever you want to call it. When you're talking about these kids, great example. My son, week 2 for his first season of tackle football, he's like, this sucks. Like football, everything in my body hurts because we came from baseball, man. And now he's playing a sport where he's getting tackled and hit literally 2 hours straight, 5 days a week. And he's just laying there like body in total pain. He's like, I don't want to do this. I was like, bud, we committed to this. I was like, we've got to see it through. So let's just go one more practice. Don't think about the whole season. We're just going to make it to the next practice. And then you let me know how you feel. The next week rolled around, feeling like smashed butt, played his first game, played with his teammates. They rallied, had a great job. We finished the season, had a great time. You do still push your kids. That he wanted to stop. And I was like, hey, man, I didn't say, you're going to fail the team. You're a small. We don't quit. That's not what. Hey, let's try one more practice and you let me know. Let me know what you think after the next practice. And guess what? All he needed was to get over that little hump. There's that just little mental hurdle as to like, this is hard. I don't know if I can do this. But he learned to break it to chunks. So instead of putting this weird expectation like, oh my God, I have to live up to my name. I have to live up to this. My father has these expectations. It was my dad taught me, if you're going to eat that dinosaur, break it down to one bite at a time. Totally different perspective on the same exact issue. But I pushed my kid, but I didn't push my kid, if that makes sense. I allowed him to go and challenge, but I didn't say, you will go, you must do this. My reputation is riding on your ability to see this through. That vicarious nature of living through your kid. If you are a father who's failing in life and you're not pursuing excellence and health, wealth, relationships, and everything else, if you've accepted mediocrity, You are failing. And kids follow your example, not your advice. So not only do we need to look at the kids and how we're conditioning them to fail, but we need to look at ourselves and see we're the example that they're following, which is also conditioning them to fail.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point, Zach. Just by us not being committed or dedicated to doing something of excellence, right, becoming better, we will condition our kids to fail. And this is something this is something that plagues me from time to time, right? Like when I want to do something and I'm getting involved and I'm bettering my life and I'm learning a new skill, whatever it may be, crypto, podcasting. I want to do it the best I can, right? I want to be good at it, and I have to take the learning process. I have to understand that I'm not good at it, so I can't expect to be perfect going into it, right? There's going to be a learning curve. I'm going to get my teeth kicked in from time to time, and I think that's a great lesson to teach your children. And I think that's another lesson or another reason why a lot of men don't pursue excellence, right? They have that shame. They say, well, what happens if I go and do this thing? What happens if I want to go and, um, create financial stability, but I fail at it? I'm no good. And my kids see that. So I think I agree with what you're saying, right? We set the example, but sometimes that example is just not giving up, right? Even if the results aren't what you want, being resilient and keep pushing past it. I would say there comes a point in time where you really have to question if you're doing the hard work, if you really, right, because you're going to see results. But I think it's an excellent marker to determine if your kids are going to be successful, not just by your success, but the attitude that you have with success, right? Your mindset. And I'm not talking being delusional and never accomplishing anything and saying that you're great, right? Coming out of the shower after your kids hear you singing for 20 minutes and you're horrible and you think that you're the best singer in the world. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about real intrinsic and valuable skills that we learn and we get better when we improve. So I'm veering a little bit off of the topic you brought up because I do think it's important that we set those examples, right? That we look within ourselves and we keep building, we keep raising our standards that we have, what we want to do in life. Because ultimately, your kids are, they're watching, they're seeing everything you do. And don't think they're not. Kids are smart, they're very receptive, they're mirrors. They see everything we do, they soak it up. And if you are a dad who's on the mission or on a path of improving and getting better, your kids are going to want to copy you, right? They're going to see this, you're their hero. And then they're going to want to emulate everything you do. And they're going to want to be a part of your world. So it's real important that we set that bar, right? That we make sure we're doing good work.
Those are great points. And it's one of those things where truly you do a disservice to your kid if you were to display that you have it all together and life is perfect for you. If you don't share your resilience and your grit and getting back up after falling, you don't show them that as an adult, they'll have to do the same. And your example was very specific. So I'm wondering if that's a cry for help, Anthony. I should talk to your family about mocking you for your singing. I think you're a great singer, man. You keep singing in that shower. You're fantastic. You're the best. And if they're bullying you, I'll talk to them too. We'll have a family Zoom intervention on how they're all picking on Anthony. But listen, man, if you don't show them that, I'm thinking about it. There are fathers I know that would rather hide in their sweatshirt than admit that they need to get the physique dialed in. They'd rather overlook some of these insecurities and these issues they have, but they're there and they know it, and it's inside their mindset and it's in the way they behave. And these kids, they see that their dad doesn't play with them on the playground. Their dad wears shirts at the beach. They see these things. They're unspoken. Nobody addresses it. They see that, hey, dad has a lot of video games, but he hasn't bought us a new bicycle or a basketball hoop or anything like that in quite a while. And we're operating with these, broken down toys and we can't afford sports. But dad is always in there, with his new video games and his new computer system and his new this and that. And they see it all. They see what you prioritize. They see where you put your time, your attention, your energy. They understand, they take notes, and they're going to live that life. And whether you raise them to live that life or not, it doesn't matter. It's the one you lived. It's the one they'll replicate. Your kids shouldn't have to come to Oak and Rock Fatherhood to learn from Anthony and I. And let that sink in, because if you don't do your job, they have to find a new dad. They have to find someone to be the dad they didn't have. I don't want to fill that role. I want to be the dude who can help a fellow man get higher. I don't want to be that person's father because their dad didn't want to show up, because their dad didn't want to admit that they had an issue and therefore limited themselves. So by limiting you, you're limiting your kids. By allowing yourself to continue to fail, you're conditioning them to accept failure. There's not much more to say beyond that.
No, that's
Anthony,
well said.
when you, I'm just wondering, when you went through, or your kids went through failure or having to overcome, some adversity, have you seen they've had an easier time because you've been so open about some of the issues you've gone through and approaches you've taken?
Yeah, definitely. And to be honest, these are conversations we have a lot in my home. And, I could rattle off a million and one examples, but to be specific, well, to be not that specific, there's things that if I could take one of my children and that they've gone through and they've failed, right? They've had a hard time, they had difficulty. And instead of pushing them and saying, you know what, you can do it. You got to just, don't give up and you got to keep going forward. What I'm starting to see and see what's more effective with my parenting and my role as a father is to not always direct them or guide them to the right way, but to just be there and listen to them and understand what they're going through. And I think that's something probably most of us have not experienced as men. So when I do that with my kids, I see their wheels spinning, and I see that they start to figure things out for themselves. They already have the mindset to not give up. So I don't need to keep reinforcing it and pushing it into them. What I start to see is the transformation where they say, okay, you know what? I might have failed, but that's not me. That's not going to stop me. And it's okay that I'm at this low point or that something's a problem in my life. It's not going to define who I am. And I think when you don't have that, that's just another version of what we were talking about before. When a father's pushing their child to meet their needs, it's the same thing, because a lot of times we want to fix everything, and it's not that our need is for our kids to achieve. Our need is that we don't want to be afraid. We don't want them to fail, right? We have this fear. So it's kind of the same thing. I don't know if I'm completely making sense. But it's the same kind of reaction, just from a different standpoint. And sometimes we lie to ourselves and we think that we're doing good when we're really just trying to over control.
One of the reasons I threw it your way is I wanted to end this session with the understanding that what we're talking about is not coming from books read and from stories and that we're promoting on there, or an image we're trying to reach. This is the life we're living. This is happening in your home. That was an example taken literally from your home through your experience with your children. That's how we're operating. The mantra of the family alpha, acted on verba. That's how I live my entire life. Through the actions with my kids, I will help them get to where they want to go, not just through my words. You should go do this. You should do that. You should suck it up. You should be who I want you to be, not who you are. No, live yourself. I live according to my rules, and I live out the best me that I can be. And I expect that from my kids as well. And Anthony, you're doing the same exact thing. And the example you just shared again was lived. This is happening. This could be happening in your home. And again, don't have kids that come looking for our resources because you didn't want to give it to them. Do not condition your children to fail. That is not what an oak does, not what a rock does, not what a good father does. And if you're on this channel and you're watching this, you're looking to be better. So be better and set your kids up to win. This has been another episode on the Oak and Rock Fatherhood YouTube channel.